History tells us that our ancestors used primitive tools. But how do we explain precision cuts in granite that even modern lasers struggle to replicate? Tonight, we're diving deep into 12 unsolved mysteries that prove advanced civilizations didn't just exist. They thrived with technology far beyond their time. But the mystery goes even deeper. Could the masterminds behind these megaliths have come from the stars? We're investigating the shocking evidence of ET engineers and the alien architects who left their blueprints in stone. From impossible structures to cosmic secrets, buckle up. We are about to rewrite everything you thought you knew about our past. Let's start our journey in West Dunbartonshire, Scotland. In 1887, a local minister discovered a massive stone slab, measuring 42 feet by 26 feet. It's known as the Cocknose stone. At first glance, it looks like a chaotic mess of carvings, cup and ring marks, spirals, and geometric lines. But as modern imaging technology scanned these grooves, a chilling realization set in. This isn't just prehistoric art, it looks like a technical schematic. Think about the date. This stone is at least 5,000 years old. Mainstream history says the people living in Scotland back then were basic farmers, just beginning to understand the wheel. Yet, on this rock, we see over 100 symbols arranged with mathematical precision. Some researchers, like the late Alexander Cuyler, pointed out something mind-blowing. The arrangement of these rings mirrors the positioning of stars and planets in our solar system as they appeared thousands of years ago. But it gets weirder. In the 1960s, the stone was so controversial and drew so many tourists that authorities actually buried it under several feet of earth to protect it from vandalism. It stayed hidden, a buried secret, for over 50 years. When it was finally unearthed in 2016 for high-resolution 3D mapping, the data revealed something the human eye had missed. The depth of the grooves varied in a way that suggested a coded language or a dataset. If this is a star map, how did primitive humans calculate the orbits of distant planets without telescopes? If it's a blueprint, what were they trying to build? Some fringe theories even suggest the stone is a Stargate coordinate system, a literal address book for the cosmos. The precision is what haunts us. To carve granite with this level of symmetry requires more than just a flint chisel and patience. It requires a fundamental understanding of geometry and celestial mechanics. We are looking at a 5,000-year-old hard drive, etched in stone, waiting for a civilization smart enough to finally read the code. And the scariest part, we might still be too primitive to understand the full message. In June 1992, a man named Wu Anai in Zhejiang Province, China, decided to settle a local legend. He and his neighbors pumped the water out of a small, bottomless pond. What they found didn't just change local history, it shattered our understanding of ancient engineering. They discovered the entrance to a massive underground world, the Longyo Caves. Imagine stepping into a space where every wall, every pillar, and every ceiling is covered in a uniform pattern of parallel grooves. There are 24 of these caverns in total, carved directly into solid siltstone. They descend 100 feet into the earth, covering an area of 30,000 square meters. But here's where the math starts to defy reality. Archaeologists estimate that to create these caves, at least 1 million cubic meters of rock had to be removed. If you had 1,000 people working 24 hours a day non-stop, it would take them decades to finish. But there is no record of this construction in any Chinese history book. No mention of the thousands of workers, no mention of the tools, and most importantly, zero evidence of where the 1,000,000 tons of excavated stone went. It simply vanished. But the real mystery isn't just the how much, it's the how. Look closely at the walls. Every single square inch is covered in a series of parallel lines, carved at a precise 60-degree angle. This isn't the work of primitive chisels. It's consistent, it's symmetrical, and it's flawless across all 24 caves. It looks like the marks left behind by a giant high-tech boring machine. And there's more. Despite being thousands of years old, the caves are structurally perfect. There are 3 giant pillars in each cave, shaped like a horse's tail, positioned precisely to support the weight of the mountain above. There is no sign of erosion, no collapses, and strangely, no soot from torches. If humans carved this deep underground, how did they see? Where are the burn marks from the fire they would have needed for light? We are left with a terrifying conclusion. Someone, long before the Han Dynasty, possessed the technology to 3D print or mechanically carve out an entire underground city with the precision of a laser. The Lanyu caves aren't just holes in the ground. They are a monument to a lost industrial age that we are only beginning to rediscover. Alright, let's head to ancient Egypt, to the Temple of Seti Thurs in Abydos. For centuries, Egyptologists have studied its hieroglyphs, documenting pharaohs, gods, and ancient rituals. But high up on a support beam, almost hidden from plain view, there's a carving that simply defies explanation. It looks like a mistake, a massive, undeniable glitch in our understanding of history. Take a look. What do you see? Because what I see is unmistakable. A clear, distinct image of a modern helicopter. Not some stylized bird, not a beetle. A helicopter complete with a fuselage, a tail boom, and even what looks like rotor blades. And right next to it, another symbol that looks eerily like a tank, or maybe a submarine. And then another, resembling a modern jet fighter or glider. Mainstream Egyptology has a very official explanation for this. They call it a palimpsest. They claim the original hieroglyphs were carved, then plastered over and recarved later. Over time, parts of the plaster fell away, and the superimposed carvings merged to accidentally create these impossible shapes. An accidental helicopter, an accidental tank, an accidental jet. Now I ask you, do you buy that? Think about the sheer astronomical odds. The chances of random erosion and superimposed carvings perfectly aligning to produce 3 distinct recognizable images of 20th century military vehicles is, well, practically zero. These aren't abstract shapes. They have distinct engineering features. The helicopter has the right proportions, the right components. It looks like someone saw these machines and carved what they remembered. This isn't about aliens. This is about challenging our timeline. Were these glimpses into the future painted by some kind of time traveler? Or, more disturbingly, were they echoes from a past civilization so advanced they had perfected flight, only to fall into obscurity, leaving behind nothing but a few cryptic messages on a temple wall? The Abydos helicopters aren't just curiosities. They are an open challenge to our historical narrative. A 3,000-year-old warning etched in stone, asking us to reconsider everything we think we know about the capabilities of ancient man. What else did they know that we've simply forgotten? Now let's travel to South America, to the mountains of Colombia. In the mid-20th century, a strange object was discovered that seems to bridge the gap between ancient stone carving and modern biology. It's a flat, black stone known as the genetic disc. At first, it looks like a simple decorative piece, but when you look closer, the carvings on its surface tell a story that shouldn't have been known for thousands of years. On this disc, we see detailed depictions of human reproduction, from the male sperm and the female egg to the exact moment of fertilization and even the development of a fetus inside the womb. Think about the implications of that for a moment. To see a human sperm cell, you need a microscope. To understand the stages of an embryo's growth, you need advanced biological knowledge and optical tools that mainstream history says weren't invented until the 17th century. Yet, here it is, etched into a material called lyddite. Lyddite is a fascinating stone. It's incredibly hard, nearly as hard as granite, but it's also extremely brittle. It has a leaf-like structure, which means if you try to carve it with a chisel and a hammer, it will simply flake and shatter. To create the fine, raised details seen on this disc, you would need modern high-speed rotary tools or precision lasers. So how did an ancient culture in Colombia achieve this with supposedly nothing but stone tools? The disc was found along with other medical instruments made of the same material, objects that fit perfectly in the human hand and seem designed for surgical procedures. The craftsmanship is so advanced that many experts initially called it a hoax. But the more we study it, the more we realize that it doesn't fit the profile of a modern forgery. Who were these people? How did they possess the eyes of a microscope thousands of years ago? The genetic disk is a silent witness to a time when humanity understood the very building blocks of life, a level of biological mastery that we are only just remastering today. Deep in the ancient quarries of Norway, hidden among the rugged landscapes, lies a mystery that has left modern engineers scratching their heads in disbelief. Imagine walking up to a solid block of hard stone and finding a hole bored clean through it. But it's not a round hole. It's a perfect seven-pointed star. These are known as the star holes of Norway. At first glance, you might think they were made for some kind of decorative purpose or religious ritual. But when you look closer, the mystery deepens. These holes aren't just shallow engravings. They penetrate deep into the rock, maintaining a perfect symmetrical star shape for several feet. Now let's talk engineering. If you want to drill a hole today, you use a rotary drill. It spins, and because it spins, it creates a circle. That's basic physics. To create a seven-pointed star with sharp 90-degree internal angles deep inside a rock, a rotating bit is useless. Even with our most advanced modern CNC machines, drilling a non-circular hole into solid granite or gneiss is an incredibly complex task that usually requires specialized broaching tools or high-frequency vibration. So how did someone thousands of years ago, supposedly with nothing but iron chisels and hammers, achieve this? The internal surfaces of these star holes are remarkably smooth, almost polished. There are no uneven marks from a chisel, no signs of the stone cracking under the pressure of a strike. Some researchers have proposed a radical theory. These weren't made by striking the rock at all. They were made using acoustic or ultrasonic technology. By using sound frequencies to vibrate a star-shaped bit, you could theoretically melt or shatter the crystalline structure of the stone, allowing the bit to slide through like a hot knife through butter. But that would mean an ancient civilization in Scandinavia possessed a mastery of sonic engineering that we are only just beginning to explore in heavy industry. Was this a test site for ancient mining technology, or part of a massive, forgotten machine? The star holes remain as silent, geometric scars on the Earth, proving that someone, a long time ago, was playing with tools we still don't fully understand. Imagine a city built in the middle of the ocean, constructed on top of a coral reef, consisting of nearly 100 artificial islands. This is Nan Madol, located off the coast of Pohnpei in Micronesia. But this isn't a city of sand and palm trees. It is a fortress made of 250 million tons of massive basalt columns. Where did this stone come from? The nearest quarry is on the other side of the island, miles away, separated by dense jungle and rugged terrain. Some of these basalt logs are 20 feet long and weigh over 50 tons. To put that in perspective, that's heavier than a fully loaded semi-truck. And yet, the ancient Pohnpeians who supposedly built this had no pulleys, no cranes, no metal tools, and no large beasts of burden. So, how did they move 250 million tons of rock onto a reef in the middle of the sea? Local legend offers a chillingly consistent answer. The elders say that two powerful sorcerers arrived from a distant land and used their magic to make the stones fly. They didn't drag them, they didn't float them on rafts. They commanded the stones to levitate through the air and settle into place. For decades, scientists laughed at this magic. But today, we are exploring a field called acoustic levitation. We've discovered that specific sound frequencies can actually lift and move physical matter. Is it possible that the builders of Nan Madol didn't use brute force, but a profound understanding of resonance and vibration? Look at the way these stones are stacked. They are interlaced like a giant log cabin, designed to withstand the brutal force of Pacific storms and tides for thousands of years. The precision is so high that even today, the structures remain stable. But there's one more mystery. If you dive beneath the waters surrounding Nan Madol, you'll find even more columns deeper down, leading to what some believe is a much older, submerged city. Was Nan Madol just the top layer of a civilization that existed before the sea levels rose? As we stand among these silent basalt giants, we have to wonder, did they use a technology that turned the laws of gravity into a simple melody? In the heat of the Crusades, European knights returned with terrifying tales of swords that could slice through a falling silk handkerchief or shatter a stone shield without losing their edge. These were the blades of Damascus. For centuries, they were the most feared and coveted weapons on Earth. But the secret of how they were made didn't just disappear. It defied the laws of metallurgy for nearly 1,000 years. What makes Damascus steel so mysterious isn't just its sharpness, it's its DNA. When modern scientists placed fragments of these ancient blades under a high-resolution electron microscope, they found something impossible. These 1,000-year-old swords contained carbon nanotubes and cementite nanowires. Think about that. Nanotechnology is a field we've only begun to master in the 21st century. Yet, ancient smiths in the Middle East were somehow manipulating matter at a molecular level. By combining specific types of iron ore from India, known as Wootz steel, with certain plant materials and heating them in a sealed crucible, they triggered a chemical reaction that created these super strong, flexible structures. But here's the real mystery. The secret died out in the 18th century. Despite our modern laboratories and advanced furnaces, we cannot perfectly replicate the original Damascus steel. We can make blades that look like it, with the beautiful watery surface patterns, but we cannot recreate the exact molecular strength of the ancient masters. Was it a lost chemical formula? Or did the specific mine in India simply run out of the rare impurities that allowed these nanotubes to form? The Damascus blade is a reminder that the past wasn't just about hammers and anvils. It was about a deep, intuitive understanding of materials that we are only now starting to rediscover through the lens of nanotechnology. The ancient world didn't just build monuments, they engineered the very atoms of their weapons. In 1930, inside a dark mine tunnel in Mexico, a teenage girl found two skeletons. One was a normal human female, but the other was something that should not exist. This is the Star Child skull, a 900-year-old mystery that challenges our very definition of being human. Look at the shape. This isn't just a slightly deformed head. The Star Child skull is bulbous, pear-shaped, and has a cranial capacity of 1,600 cubic centimeters. That is 200 cubic centimeters larger than the average adult human, despite the skull belonging to a child. The eye sockets are shallow and oval-shaped, and the optic nerve openings are positioned in a way that suggests a completely different visual system. Mainstream scientists were quick to label this as a case of hydrocephalus, water on the brain. But the evidence tells a different story. In cases of hydrocephalus, the skull expands unevenly, creating distortions. The Star Child skull, however, is perfectly symmetrical. But the real shock came from the lab. When researchers analyzed the bone, they found it was half as thick as human bone, yet twice as hard. It contained strange microscopic fibers that have never been seen in any other species on Earth. And then there's the DNA. Initial tests in 2010 revealed that parts of the mitochondrial DNA, the DNA inherited from the mother, were human. But the nuclear DNA, the DNA that determines the father, it was unidentifiable. It didn't match anything in the National Institutes of Health database. Was this a natural mutation so extreme it rewrote the laws of biology? Or are we looking at the physical evidence of ancient intervention? Some believe this skull is a hybrid, a bridge between humanity and a much more advanced civilization that visited us long ago. Whether it was a child of the stars or a lost branch of the human family tree, the Star Child skull remains a silent, bone-white enigma. It stares back at us with those shallow eyes, asking a terrifying question. Do we really know who our ancestors were? In the Jahanabad district of India, there is a cluster of caves carved into giant granite boulders that shouldn't exist according to the history of technology. These are the Barabar caves. On the outside, they look like simple ancient entrances, but once you step inside, the world changes. The interior walls of these caves are not rough or jagged, they are polished to a mirror-like finish. We are talking about granite, one of the hardest stones on Earth, polished so smooth that you can see your reflection clearly, 2,300 years after they were supposedly carved with simple chisels. Mainstream history says these were meditation halls for monks. But why go to such extreme lengths? To achieve this level of mirror polish on granite today, we use high-speed diamond grinders and chemical polishing agents. The geometry inside is even more disturbing. The arches and rectangular rooms are perfectly symmetrical, with corners so sharp they look like they were cut with a laser. But the true secret of Barabar isn't what you see, it's what you hear. The caves are precision-engineered acoustic chambers. Because of the perfect curvature and the glass-like walls, the resonance inside is unlike anything on Earth. A single clap or a hum creates an echo that lasts for several seconds, vibrating at specific frequencies that seem designed to affect the human nervous system. If you make a sound, the cave doesn't just reflect it, it amplifies it into a haunting metallic vibration. It's as if the entire mountain is singing. Why build a mirror-polished, acoustically perfect chamber inside solid rock? Was it for spiritual enlightenment, or was it a piece of ancient technology? Some researchers believe these were vibrational labs, places where sound was used for healing, or perhaps even for softening stone itself. The Barabar Caves prove that 2,000 years ago, someone understood the intersection of geometry, geology, and frequency far better than we do today. In 1961, 3 shop owners were searching for unusual rocks in the Olancha Mountains of California. They found a geode, a common-looking stone with crystals inside. But when they cut it open, they didn't find quartz or amethyst. They found something that shouldn't exist in nature, a mechanical component. This is the Koso artifact. Inside a shell of hardened clay, pebbles, and fossil shells, there was a white ceramic cylinder with a magnetic copper ring and a 2mm steel shaft in its center. X-ray analysis revealed even more disturbing details. Inside the ceramic sleeve, there was a tiny metallic spring. Does that sound familiar? It should. It bears a striking resemblance to a modern spark plug, specifically a Champion spark plug from the 1920s. But here's where it gets impossible. Geologists who examined the fossil shells in the casing surrounding the object estimated its age at over 500,000 years. 500,000 years ago, humans were barely beginning to control fire. We certainly weren't manufacturing high-grade ceramics, refining magnetic copper, or creating precision-wound steel springs. Critics argue it's just a 1920s spark plug that fell into a mud hole and developed a natural concretion around it very quickly. But if that's the case, how do you explain the chemical process that fused fossilized shells from a much older era into the crust? If the Koso artifact is truly ancient, it means our ancestors, or someone else on this planet, had mastered internal combustion engines before the last ice age. It means the roar of engines might have echoed through the mountains 500,000 years before Henry Ford was even born. Was it a relic from a lost industrial era? Or is time itself more fluid than we believe? The Koso artifact was eventually lost by its owners, but the X-rays remain as haunting proof of a technology that wasn't supposed to be there. For centuries, we've been told the Great Pyramid of Giza was a tomb for Pharaoh Khufu. But here's the problem. No mummy has ever been found inside. No internal inscriptions, no funeral art, and no treasures. Instead, what we find inside the most precise structure on Earth looks less like a temple and more like a massive industrial machine. This is the Giza power plant theory, popularized by researcher Christopher Dunn. Think about the materials. The pyramid isn't just made of limestone. Its core chambers are built with massive blocks of rose granite. Granite contains a high concentration of quartz crystals. When quartz is subjected to pressure, it generates electricity. This is known as the piezoelectric effect. Now, imagine the entire pyramid, millions of tons of stone, vibrating with the Earth's own seismic frequency. The Great Pyramid is tuned to the Earth's resonance. It's a giant harmonic oscillator. But what about the fuel? In the Queen's Chamber, researchers found traces of hydrochloric acid and zinc chloride. When these two chemicals are mixed, they create hydrogen gas, one of the most powerful energy carriers in existence. This gas would have been directed into the Grand Gallery, where it was energized into a microwave beam. But where did the power go? Look at the tip of the pyramid. It was once capped with a gold or electrum pyramidion, Gold is one of the best electrical conductors. The theory suggests the pyramid was a wireless transmitter, sending clean, free energy through the ionosphere. The same concept Nikola Tesla tried to achieve with his Wardenclyffe Tower thousands of years later. If the Giza power plant is real, it means the ancient Egyptians didn't just have fire and copper. They had an advanced understanding of vibrational physics and chemical engineering. They weren't building for the dead, they were powering the living. And when the system was eventually shut down or sabotaged, it plunged the world into a dark age that lasted millennia. Finally, we arrive at the ultimate mystery. Deep beneath the crashing waves of the Pacific Ocean, off the coast of Yonaguni Island in Japan, lies a structure so massive and so precise that it threatens to rewrite every history book on Earth. This is the Yonaguni Monument. Discovered by a diver in 1986, this submerged megalith is 165 feet long and 65 feet high. At first glance, it looks like a giant stepped pyramid, but as scientists dived deeper, they found features that nature simply does not create. We are talking about perfect 90-degree angles, flat terraces that look like grand staircases, and straight walls so smooth they feel polished. Mainstream geologists try to argue that this is a natural formation, the result of sandstone fracturing. But can nature create a perfect, right-angle corner? Can nature carve a trench that surrounds a structure, or create two massive, parallel pillars that stand 20 feet apart? But here is the smoking gun. Geologists agree that for this structure to be above sea level, it would have to be at least 10,000 to 12,000 years old. Think about that. 12,000 years ago, according to our current history, humans were primitive hunter-gatherers. We weren't supposed to know how to move massive stones, let alone carve an entire mountain into a ceremonial complex. This was the end of the last ice age, a time of global catastrophe, melting glaciers and rising sea levels. Legend speaks of Mu, a lost continent in the Pacific that vanished in a single night of fire and water. Is Yonaguni a remnant of that lost world? If Yonaguni is man-made, it proves that a global, seafaring, and highly advanced civilization existed while we were supposedly living in caves. It proves that we are not the first modern humans. We are just the survivors of a cataclysm that erased our true origins. The Yonaguni Monument isn't just a rock at the bottom of the sea. It is a mirror. It shows us that greatness can be achieved, and then in the blink of a geological eye, it can be taken away. It is the final proof that history isn't a line, it's a cycle, and we are just beginning our turn. These 12 mysteries leave us with one haunting question. If primitive humans didn't have the tools, then who or what actually built these wonders? The answer might not be found on Earth, but among the stars. It's time to look at the evidence of alien architects and the ET engineers who shaped our world. Let's re-examine the megaliths through a cosmic lens. In the first segment, we dared to ask the question. Now, it's time to examine the evidence that makes the simple, accepted answers collapse under their own weight. We must move beyond speculation and confront the physical reality of the impossible. Let's begin in the Bekaa Valley of Lebanon, at a site of sheer, overwhelming megalithic power, Baalbek. Here, within the ruins of the Roman Temple of Jupiter, we find an ancient, elevated platform that contains the most staggering construction anomaly on Earth, the Trilithon. These are 3 monolithic foundation stones, each estimated to weigh between 800 and 1,000 tons. To put that in perspective, one single stone weighs the equivalent of 2 fully loaded Boeing 747 jumbo jets. The Roman engineers who built the temple on top of this platform were giants themselves, but even they couldn't have moved these foundation blocks. They merely used the infrastructure they found. But the mystery deepens just a quarter-mile away in the quarry. There lies the Stone of the South, or Hajar al-Hibla. This unfinished stone block is the largest single stone ever quarried, weighing an estimated 1,650 tons. It was ready to be moved but ultimately abandoned. Now, consider the consensus explanation. Moving these stones with manpower, ropes, and log rollers. Even with sophisticated modern equipment, Moving a 1,600-ton block is a monumental task, requiring highly specialized, often custom-built industrial gear. To suggest a civilization without the wheel, without steel, without known high-capacity cranes, could not only move these blocks but also hoist them into precise position defies every known law of ancient engineering. Human ingenuity is powerful, but it has limits. Baalbek pushes us far, far beyond them. Let us travel now, across the globe and high into the Andes Mountains of Bolivia, to the ruins of Puma Punku. The stones here are not merely large, they are machined. Unlike the massive, roughly cut blocks of other sites, Puma Punku features thousands of interlocking, intricately carved blocks, many of them T-shaped or H-shaped. These stones are predominantly made of diorite, a material so hard that it ranks nearly as tough as granite, and challenging to work with even for modern tools. What is truly shocking is the precision. Look closely at the joins. The stones fit together with zero visible gaps, creating a perfect non-mortar construction. They exhibit internal right angles, sharp edges, and uniform depths that suggest the use of template-based mass production. Some blocks feature small drill holes that are perfectly cylindrical and spaced with geometric regularity. How? The accepted answer is simple stone tools. But a copper or bronze chisel cannot carve diorite with this level of accuracy. It would shatter. The precision cuts suggest a level of technology capable of making repeated, standardized, and clean incisions on hard rock. We are talking about the kind of geometry and execution that we associate with computer-aided design and industrial machinery, not ancient humans living thousands of years ago. Puma Punku isn't just a failure of imagination, it's a failure of physics when viewed through the lens of mainstream archaeology. The cuts are too perfect, the angles too precise, the material too hard. It begs the question, what kind of tool cuts rock like butter? Our final stop takes us even further back in time, to the dawn of civilization itself, in southeastern Turkey, Göbekli Tepe. Discovered only a few decades ago, this site has completely rewritten the history books. It consists of multiple circular enclosures featuring massive, T-shaped limestone pillars, some weighing up to 20 tons, carved with intricate animal reliefs. The astounding part is the date. Göbekli Tepe is dated back to roughly 11,600 years ago. This is before the invention of pottery, before the mastery of agriculture, before humans were supposedly living in stable, large communities. This was the time of hunter-gatherers. How does a society of nomadic hunter-gatherers organize the labor, the resources, and the engineering knowledge required to carve, transport, and erect massive 20-ton pillars? The construction of Göbekli Tepe suggests a highly complex, coordinated, and sophisticated civilization. But according to the timeline we are taught, that level of complexity simply did not exist yet. Göbekli Tepe is not just an impossible construction, it's an impossible date. It stands as a monumental contradiction to our current understanding of human development. When you look at Baalbek, Puma Punku, and Göbekli Tepe together, the pattern becomes clear. We are not looking at isolated incidents of genius. We are looking at a global footprint of advanced engineering that transcends the known capabilities, tools, and timelines of ancient humanity. The human ingenuity explanation simply doesn't hold up. We are left with only one logical inference. If human hands, as we understand them, did not possess the technology, then the architects must have been outside. We have seen the stones, we have measured the impossible cuts. The physical evidence from Baalbek, Puma Punku, and Göbekli Tepe screams that a technology beyond ancient human capacity was involved in our history. But if the architects weren't from this world, did they leave behind any other kind of evidence? We must now turn our gaze from the megaliths to the myths, the stories our ancestors told, which might actually be factual accounts of extraterrestrial intervention. Across every continent, separated by vast oceans and millennia of time, a strikingly consistent narrative emerges: the arrival of the Sky People. In ancient Sumer, we find the accounts of the Anunnaki, who descended from the heavens to impart knowledge and establish civilization. In Egypt, the god Thoth, often depicted with advanced instruments, is credited with teaching geometry, mathematics, and writing. Across the Atlantic, Central American cultures revered figures like Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent who arrived from the sea or the sky, and brought advanced calendar systems and agriculture before promising to return. These aren't just quaint fairy tales. These are detailed cultural records, universally describing powerful, technologically superior beings, often referred to as gods, who possessed the knowledge and tools that kick-started human civilization. Why would so many disparate cultures invent the exact same story? Perhaps they didn't invent it. Perhaps they were recording a shared global event, the visit of the alien architects. The connection between myth and megalith becomes undeniable when we look at archaeological anomalies that challenge the timeline of human science. We call them out-of-place artifacts, or oparts. Consider the Dendera light relief found in Egypt. It shows figures holding what strongly resembles a massive light bulb, or a Crookes tube, complete with a filament and a cable connected to a power source. Mainstream archaeology claims it represents a mythological lotus flower, but the visual analogy to a high-voltage electrical device is uncanny. Then there are the figurines from the Ubaid period in Mesopotamia, figures dated 7,000 years old, depicting strange, elongated skulls and reptilian features. These were created by the very people who witnessed the founding of Sumerian civilization. Were these just artistic flourishes or actual attempts to depict the biological forms of their gods? The Anunnaki, the very beings who supposedly provided the knowledge to build the first great cities. And what about the knowledge itself? Ancient texts reveal an understanding of astronomy that is mathematically impossible for their supposed technological level. The Dogon tribe in Africa held precise knowledge of the existence and orbit of Sirius B, a companion star to Sirius, which is invisible to the naked eye. How did they know? Their tribal lore states this information was given to them by beings from the Sirius star system. These are not isolated puzzles. They are pieces of a cosmic tapestry, suggesting a deliberate technological transfer from a non-human intelligence. Finally, let's revisit the stones and look for the markings that reveal the nature of the architect's tools. The cuts on the huge sarcophagi in the Serapeum of Saqqara, or the granite boxes inside the Great Pyramid, show saw marks that are so fine and precise they would require a high-speed, diamond-tipped saw today. The cores extracted from these stone blocks show circular striations that narrow to a point, the signature of a rapidly rotating, incredibly durable drill bit. This is precision engineering, requiring a consistent, immense power source. If the ancients used slow, laborious, hand-powered methods, the tool marks would be inconsistent, uneven, and crude. But they are not. They are uniform. They are perfect. They are the residue of machinery. These ancient texts, these anomalous artifacts, and these clean, impossible tool marks connect to form one compelling argument. The sheer labor of the megaliths was achieved through alien technology, either wielded directly by the sky people or transferred to early human collaborators. The gods didn't just bless our ancestors with good crops, they gave them the power to move mountains. In our last segment, we connected the physical anomalies of the megaliths with the universal myths of the sky people. But this raises a crucial, practical question. How exactly did these extraterrestrial architects involve themselves? We can debate two main theories of interaction. Was it a complete technological transfer, or was it direct, hands-on construction by the alien visitors? The first theory, knowledge transfer, suggests that an advanced civilization visited early humanity and, acting as teachers or gods, imparted critical scientific and engineering knowledge. They gave us the blueprint, the advanced mathematics, and the understanding of certain physical laws, allowing a small, select group of human collaborators to execute the impossible constructions. This explains the sudden, inexplicable leaps in ancient civilization, like the precise astronomical knowledge of the Maya or the perfect geometry of the Great Pyramid. The second theory, direct intervention, is more radical. It posits the megaliths were built directly by the visitors, not by our ancestors. They used their own advanced machinery to rapidly construct the monuments for their own purposes, perhaps using human labor only for simple preparation or finishing touches. This theory is best supported by the sheer scale of sites like Baalbek, where the logistics of human-only labor, even with superior knowledge, seem insurmountable. But regardless of who held the controls, the evidence of the tools themselves remains, and those tools suggest a mastery over matter that we are only now beginning to conceptualize. Let's analyze the tool marks again, but this time through the lens of physics. We see evidence of cuts that suggest the material was not carved but softened. Consider the large stone vessels inside the Egyptian pyramids, often made of hard granite or diorite. The inner curves of these vessels are perfectly spherical and smooth, yet the openings are too small to allow an ancient craftsman to reach in with a copper tool and apply the necessary force. How were the insides hollowed out? This points to something entirely non-mechanical, such as focused energy. Imagine a form of directed energy that could break down the molecular bonds of hard rock in a highly controlled area, essentially turning the granite into putty for a brief period before it solidified again. A machine that could carve stone using localized plasma or concentrated sound waves. And what about the movement of the stones, the most enduring mystery of all? If not ropes and sleds, what power source negated gravity? We return to the possibility of acoustic levitation. Ancient legends, particularly in Tibet, speak of monks using precisely tuned instruments, drums and trumpets, to lift massive stones into position. While dismissed as folklore, modern physics does allow for acoustic levitation, though currently only on a very small scale. But if alien engineers understood the vibrational frequency of the stone itself, they could use resonant frequencies to counteract Earth's gravitational pull, effectively making the 1,600-ton block weigh as little as a pebble. The structure of the granite and quartz used in many megalithic sites is highly relevant here. As quartz crystals are piezoelectric, they produce an electric charge under mechanical stress, or vice versa. Were these sites built not just as structures, but as components in a giant harmonic energy system? The tools of the unknown architects were likely not the grinding wheels and hammers we imagine. They were instruments of energy, frequency, and vibration. If we accept the premise that extraterrestrial intelligence was here, we must accept their technology would be thousands, perhaps millions of years beyond our own. Their tools could be gravity manipulators, plasma cutters, or even self-assembling nanobots that fused the stone blocks together. This segment's takeaway is this: whether the aliens gave us the plans or built the structures themselves, the engineering residue points to a civilization that understood the fundamental forces of the universe, forces that allowed them to cheat physics and leave behind monuments that still stand as silent, baffling testimony to a forgotten age of cosmic collaboration. We have traversed the ruins of the impossible and documented the tools of the forgotten. We are left with a final, profound question. Why? What possible motive could compel an advanced, star-faring race to invest untold energy and technology into assisting, or perhaps directly creating, these massive stone monuments on a relatively young, developing planet? To answer this, we must stop viewing these structures as tombs or simple temples. We must begin to view them as functional devices, pieces of a greater cosmic machine designed by the alien architects. One of the most compelling theories centers on celestial alignment. Consider the Great Pyramid of Giza. It is not simply aligned to the cardinal directions with near-perfect accuracy. It also adheres precisely to the Orion correlation theory. This theory posits that the three main pyramids on the Giza plateau perfectly mirror the three stars of Orion's belt. This alignment points directly to the year 10,500 BC, an era that correlates suspiciously well with the age of Göbekli Tepe and the end of the last ice age. Why Orion? Was this constellation the originating point of the architects themselves? Were they establishing an immutable, colossal marker to commemorate their arrival, or to signal their point of origin to future civilizations? These structures weren't just calendars. They were astronomical observatories, designed not just to track the sun and moon, but to track cycles of the stars that span thousands of years. A deep time clock meant for the ages. But the motives might be far more energetic than commemorative. Many researchers propose that the megaliths, particularly those made of quartz-rich granite, were designed to function as energy conduits or power stations. We discussed the piezoelectric effect of quartz, the ability to convert mechanical stress into electrical energy. If a massive granite structure, built over a fault line or situated at a confluence of Earth's natural energy currents, often called ley lines, is subjected to constant, subtle seismic vibration, it could act as a giant, low-frequency electrical resonator. The Great Pyramid, with its carefully chosen shafts and chambers, may have been designed to harness this energy. Perhaps the water channel found beneath the structure was not for drinking, but a method to generate a massive electrostatic charge. The pyramids then become gigantic batteries, transmitting or receiving energy from an unknown source. What was this energy used for? Communication, propulsion, or perhaps maintaining an invisible global security grid? This leads us to the grandest proposal, that these structures form a cosmic blueprint, a navigational system for the entire planet. Imagine a global network of monuments, from Easter Island's Moai to the megaliths of the UK, all positioned with non-random spacing, utilizing precise geographic and geodetic measurements. This network might function as a planetary beacon system, marking the location of Earth in the vastness of space or guiding interstellar travelers. They are essentially colossal, non-degradable landing markers. The implications of accepting this paradigm shift are enormous. If the alien architects intervened, it fundamentally changes our self-image. We are not the sole masters of our destiny, but perhaps the beneficiaries of an earlier, highly advanced curriculum. Human history is not a linear progression of slow, painful invention. It is a collaborative project, seeded by the stars. The megaliths are not ruins. They are persistent messages left for us to decipher when we, as a species, finally reach the technological and spiritual maturity to understand the language of the universe. They are a call to action, written in stone, urging us to look up, to connect the dots, and to acknowledge our true place in the cosmos, not as isolated inhabitants of a single planet, but as part of a galactic community, whose beginnings were engineered by the gods from the sky. We have reached the end of our investigation, but truly, this is only the beginning of the journey. We started with a challenge to history, and we conclude with a challenge to our own perception. The evidence is before us, from the logistical impossibility of Baalbek's megaliths and the machine precision of Puma Punku, to the chronological anomaly of Göbekli Tepe, and the repeating myths of the Sky People. All of it converges into a single, compelling thesis. We were not alone in our ancient history. Accepting the alien architect's paradigm is not a rejection of our ancestors. It is an elevation of their story. It frames humanity not as an isolated experiment, but as a crucial, perhaps cherished, component of a larger, galactic narrative. It means that the great leaps forward, in mathematics, astronomy, and architecture, were not simply luck, but were part of a sophisticated, directed curriculum. The evidence is carved in stone, scattered across continents, and written in the stars. Are we looking at the remnants of a lost human golden age, or the fingerprints of visitors from another world? The more we uncover, the more we realize that our history is far more complex than we were ever told. But the final piece of the puzzle belongs to you. What do you believe? Were we guided by alien architects, or is there a forgotten human technology lost to time? Let us know your theories in the comments below. If you're ready to dig deeper into the mysteries of our past, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. Join us as we continue to challenge the history books. Thanks for watching.